Samsung's flagship phones like the Galaxy S23 Ultra, Fold 5, and a Flip 5, as well as Samsung's Tab S9 series and older tablets, just got their biggest update of 2023 in the form of One UI 6. There's a ton to cover here, and you'll want to stick around to the end so you can learn how to get a limited time deal for 25% off any Samsung flagship phone, plus other big discounts. Let's get started. Throughout this video, I'll have the old version on the left and the new version on the right. Let's start with the camera app because that's where we're going to get a lot of fun changes. The auto FPS feature, which can take low light videos from super dark like this when it's not enabled to super bright like this when it is enabled, now has 3 options. If you switch to video mode, then go to settings, you see that you could previously just turn auto FPS on or off. But now if you tap the text, you can have it enabled only for 30 FPS video or 30 FPS and 60 FPS video, and obviously you could turn it off as well. Just keep in mind that fast-moving objects will be a bit blurry when using this feature. So if your low-light videos are more than bright enough but are a bit too blurry, try turning this feature off. If we switch back to photo mode, then jump back into the settings, Samsung's turbo shutter feature that lets you go from slow photos like this to wildly fast photos like this now has its own dedicated menu called Advanced Intelligence Options. The maximum option will take slower but heavily optimized photos. The medium option takes slightly faster photos with slightly less optimization. And minimum drops all optimization and just lets the camera rip. I recommend keeping this on maximum or medium for most of your photos, then switching to minimum if you want to get action photos of faster moving people or objects. Looking at the top of the camera settings, you'll see that Scan Documents and Text now has its own menu, where previously it was part of the Scene Optimizer menu. And Scene Optimizer itself has been moved into the Advanced Intelligence Options menu. But besides this feature moving to its own dedicated line, if you tap the text, you get some new features here. Most notably is this auto scan feature. This will highlight your document in yellow before automatically scanning the document and taking you to the edit screen, where you now get a new option to rotate the image before saving your scan. Remove unwanted objects just crops your fingers out of the photo, but it won't magically erase your fingers if they're on top of the document. If you turn on grid lines in the camera settings, you'll now get a level line in the middle of your screen when using the rear camera in all modes except panorama. When the line turns yellow, you'll know you have a level shot. If you tap the watermark text in the camera settings, you'll get a new alignment option that lets you move the watermark from the bottom to the top, but the rest of the settings are identical. If you don't like the feature where you can swipe on the camera screen to switch between the rear and front-facing cameras, you can turn that feature off by jumping into the settings and disabling swipe up and down to switch cameras. Now if I try swiping, nothing happens. The quick settings in the camera app also get a facelift. For starters, the camera resolution gets its own dedicated menu now, instead of being part of the aspect ratio menu. And the motion photo and effects menus look slightly different. And speaking of the effects menus, the adjustments changed from a bar to a dial to make it easier to make adjustments. And if you switch to video mode and tap the video resolution, you'll now get information about what each resolution is good for, as well as what the different frame rates are good for. The camera upgrades don't stop in the camera app. If you long press on your home screen and go to your widgets and scroll down a bit, you'll see that you now have a camera option that was not previously available. If you tap this and add that widget, you'll be able to customize a widget that will take you into any camera mode. So for now, I'll just select night photo and go back. And you'll see that I can also save the pictures and videos to a specific album, not just the default album. And now that I've set this to my vacation album, any photo I take when I tap this widget will automatically be saved into that album. But if I just open up the camera like normal, all my photos will go to their default save location. And you could also change the widget background to be the most recent photo in that album, or be a specific image. And you can also change the title of the widget. Once that's all set, you can tap save. Then you can resize your widget if you'd like. Now, anytime I tap that widget, it's going to take me right into night mode, and it'll tell me right in the corner which album it's going to save that photo to. So that's pretty cool on its own, but this gets even more powerful when you realize that you can stack these widgets on top of each other, then just swipe through them instead of having them take up a ton of space on your home screen. Another cool trick that was previously available but not that many people know about is that you can long press the camera app, then long press one of the shortcuts, and drag them out like their own application. And when you tap one of those shortcuts, it takes you right to that mode in the camera. The only downside with this is that it's not customizable like the widget is, so any photos or videos you take with this method are going to go to your default save location. The Gallery app gets a few big upgrades as well. For starters, if you swipe up on a photo, you'll now get suggested effects and editing options to apply to the photo. So if I tap this 24-hour time-lapse, it'll automatically apply the 24-hour time-lapse effect to the photo. When you tap the pencil icon to edit a photo, you'll be met with a new layout that makes it easier to make common adjustments. When you long press on the subject of an image to cut it out, you now get a Save As Sticker option, which automatically saves it to your stickers. What this means is that if you go to edit a photo later, then select this drawing option in the bottom right, then select stickers, then select the gallery option, you'll see any stickers you created, and if you tap them, you can add them into the photo. So it's just a much faster way to create a sticker. While we're talking about stickers, if you do create a new sticker on One UI 6, you now get the option to draw on the sticker as well. Previously, all you could do is add an outline and change the color of that outline. And in case you're wondering, you can still create outlines on One UI 6 as well. If you've ever drawn on an image to send to someone, but then after you saved it realized you accidentally made a mark on the image that you didn't want there, you were previously unable to fix that by going back to the drawing and going to the eraser. If I do that on an older device, it just won't work. So the only way to fix the issue was to remove all of your drawing, then start all over again. Now, if I tap the edit icon and go back to the drawing options and select the eraser, I can erase things that were previously drawn without having to erase everything. If you back out to your main gallery page, then tap these three bars right here, you'll get a new option here called Go to Studio. And if you tap this, you'll be taken to a far more powerful video editor compared to what was previously available. So as you can see, I'd already started a project previously, and if I tap that, I can jump right back into the project. And as you can see, this uses a much more common video editing layout. You get one layer for your video track, up to 4 layers for text and stickers, and 2 separate layers for audio. And everything can be modified by either tapping it in your timeline or tapping it in the video and just moving it around. And if I swipe across on the timeline, I can tap a video clip, then just drag the edges to make it shorter or longer. And if I tap between 2 different videos, I can choose between 4 different transition effects. So if I apply an effect, then tap play, you'll see that it did a dissolve effect. But the best part about this is that when you tap done, it saves your editing as a project so you can come back to it later. Before One UI 6, if you did any video editing with the built-in video editor, you wouldn't be able to save progress, so you had to finish all of your edits in one sitting. And while we're talking about videos, if you open up a video in the video player, then tap on the screen, you'll get an updated layout with more controls at the bottom thanks to the play and skip buttons being moved to the middle. Most notably, you get the addition of a playback speed option. One of the most obvious changes will be with the new quick settings panel that you get to by swiping down twice. You now get a dedicated Wi-Fi and Bluetooth toggle section, and your eye comfort shield and dark mode settings have been tied into your brightness settings. And your screen mirroring and device control has been brought down to the bottom for easier access. The middle section remains the same swipeable toggle section as it was before, so this fits a lot more on a single screen. If you tap this pencil icon, you'll get a few editing options, and this is a bit different than the options that were available previously. On One UI 6, you'll be able to edit just the top panel by itself, and this is the panel that appears when you swipe your notification shade down once. Then you can edit the full panel separately. Previously, the first line of shortcuts that you see here had to exactly match the shortcuts that were in this menu here. So it's nice to have some extra customizability here. Editing those shortcuts is the same as before, where you just long press on a shortcut and drag it to where you want it to be. Going back to the main editing page on One UI 6 gets you a few extra options as well. You get this quick settings instant access, and if you tap this and enable it, you'll be able to pull down from the top right corner and jump straight into your quick settings. But if you swipe down anywhere else, it'll just take you to your notification shade. And in case you're wondering, you can still do the 2-finger swipe method to jump straight into your quick toggles as well. If you jump back into the editing options, you'll see a couple more options here, and these are the same options that were available in the quick panel layout options on the previous generation of the software. Another big improvement to these quick toggles is that when you enable airplane mode, if you then re-enable Wi-Fi, as well as Bluetooth, your phone will now remember those settings, so when you leave airplane mode, then come back to it again later, it's going to keep both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on. Previously, you'd always have to manually re-enable those. Something that's been removed on One UI 6 is the ability to tap the text underneath the toggle to jump into quick settings for that toggle. The only way to do that now is to simply long press the toggle. But even still, that'll take you to the full settings for that toggle instead of a little pop-up like we had before. Grouped notifications now expand to their own separate bubbles, and it makes it a little bit easier to differentiate between the notifications. And if you tap on notification settings, then go back a page, then into advanced settings, you'll see a new option here called Show App Icon in Notifications. This allows you to go from having your notifications show generic icons like this to notifications that use the actual app icons. When you expand the media controller in the notification shade, the album art will now cover the entire controller. And the progress bar gets a cool animation added to it as well. And the color of that graphic changes based on the album art. If we jump back into the notification settings, then go back a page, we now have the option to sort the notifications by time instead of priority. The lock screen editor also gets some new features. If you long press your lock screen, then unlock your phone, you'll now be able to move the clock wherever you want in the top half of the screen. And of course, you can still adjust the size as well. Previously, you couldn't move it around at all and could only make it larger or smaller. The text for applications has been moved to a single line instead of multiple lines like it was before. And some of Samsung's applications have been renamed to fit on a single line. Personally, I kind of prefer seeing the full name of the applications like before, but let me know in the comments below which version you prefer. Speaking of the applications, when you long press to drag an application around, you can now use a second hand to navigate through your different pages. Previously, you'd have to drag the application to the edge and hold it there for a second to go to a different page. Long pressing on the subject of an image to cut it out has been around for a little while now, but having that two-handed support makes it a whole lot easier to drag that image into another application. It also makes it a lot easier to quickly share images from your internet browser by just dropping it into the messaging application. And that's a whole lot faster than having to download the image first before you share it. And sharing the image this way also gives a link to where the image came from. If you open up an application into pop-up view by either going into your recent applications, tapping the app icon, then selecting open in pop-up view, or by opening your edge panel, long pressing the application you want and dragging it out to the middle, you'll now be able to keep that pop-up window open when switching to a different application. But you can still manually minimize the application if you want. Samsung's keyboard also gets an update, but just with updated emojis. All of them will be pretty much the same, just with slight variations in styling. If you swipe up to go to your app drawer, then tap in the search bar and search for something, you'll now be able to long press any application in the results and access the shortcuts for that application. Previously, you'd only see the shortcuts for the first search result. And if you search for a specific action, like adding an event, it'll show you any application that supports that action. And if you tap one of the results, it'll start that action in the corresponding application. Samsung's powerhouse app, Modes and Routines, also gets some upgrades. And if you're not familiar with Modes and Routines, it's the most powerful feature on any Samsung device, and I already uploaded a deep dive video on it that you can check out with the link at the end of this video or in the pinned comment. So I'm not going to dive deep into all the features here, I'm just going to show you what's new. So in the Modes tab, if you select one of your modes, then scroll all the way down to the bottom and select the lock screen wallpaper option, then choose a new wallpaper, you'll now be able to also customize the clock size, as well as its position, and you can change your notification transparency and style, and even change your contact information, as well as your two shortcuts. So that means anytime this mode is activated, and I go back to my lock screen, you'll see that every aspect of the lock screen has been changed, not just the wallpaper. And when that mode ends, the lock screen will go back to normal. If you switch to the Routines tab, then create a new routine, and create a new if condition, you'll see a new option called Media is being played. If you tap this option, you can even select which specific application is playing that media. So I can run a completely different routine depending on which application's playing media. And if you jump into your then options, you'll get a new option called Samsung Keyboard that lets you change your keyboard settings when the routine runs. And if none of this is making sense to you, definitely check out that other video because I dive real deep into what all of this means. The Smart Suggestions widget, which automatically suggests different applications based on your usage patterns, also gets some updates. For starters, if you long press the widget, it's now more resizable and has its own dedicated settings now. This allows you to exclude specific applications, turn on or off notification access, which just allows it to recommend applications based on which notifications you have. You can change the background color, as well as the background transparency, and you can choose whether or not to match the background with dark mode. And if I set the transparency all the way down to 0, then move the widget to my homepage, you'll see that the apps within the widget now align perfectly with the apps that are outside of the widget. And if you really want, you could just have this widget on your home screen by itself, and you should have all of your most frequently used applications readily available, even if you shrink it down to just one row of applications. The Calendar app also gets a big improvement. If you tap the 3 bars in the upper left corner, you get a new option called Schedule, and if you tap that, you'll be able to see all of your events, tasks, and reminders in chronological order. And if you go back into that side menu and select Reminders, you'll now stay in the Calendar app and be able to go to different days to see if there's any reminders for that specific day. Previously, it would just take you into the Reminders application, And you could also now add reminders from directly within the calendar as well. If you switch to either the day or week view, you can now long press on an event with one finger, then swipe to different weeks with the other finger, and drop it wherever you need. Previously, you could only drag the appointment around with one hand. Before One UI 6, if you shared something to the reminder application, it would just save that image or link to the reminder without letting you add any more context to that reminder. On One UI 6, if I share something to the reminder app here, it'll actually take me into the reminder page and let me customize the reminder. I'd even be able to change the time, place, and category for that reminder before saving it. And if I jump into the reminder application, you'll see that it now looks a little bit different. Not only do you see your total number of reminders for the different categories at the top, and get the ability to quickly modify all of your categories here, you also get smaller images for your reminders so you can see more reminders in a single area. And if you go to add a new reminder, you now have the ability to take a picture from within the reminder application instead of just jumping to your gallery. And that would be useful if you're trying to save a reminder for where you parked and you want to take a picture of your parking spot. And if you tap time, you can now create all day reminders instead of just a reminder for a specific time. If you jump into the My Files app and scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see that Analyze Storage is now Manage Storage. And besides the breakdown of how your storage is being used, you now get these little pop-ups here that show you how to free up the most amount of space. And you'll even get recommendations like adding cloud storage to get some data off your phone and onto a cloud. And the last page shows you the applications taking up the most space. Scrolling further down also gives you a duplicate files option that shows you when you have two of the exact same file saved in different locations. You can then select all the duplicates in one shot and quickly delete them. Or you could manually select which ones you want to delete. And if you select the trash option, you'll now be able to see all the trash from any application on one page. Previously, if I wanted to see the trash in my gallery, it wouldn't show up here. I'd actually have to go to the gallery application to see that trash. And if I tap one of those options and select some files, I can restore or delete them right from within the My Files app. If you jump into your settings, then scroll down a bit, you'll see that the battery and device care menu has been split to two separate menus, one for battery and one for device care. And that just makes it faster to get into your battery settings. If you long press on your home screen, then go to Widgets, then scroll all the way to the bottom, you see that you get two new weather widgets. Weather Insights gives you info about your local weather conditions, like if severe weather is coming, or simple updates like when sunset is. The Weather and News widget gives you a tiny icon in the corner with your current weather, and tapping that icon takes you to the weather app for more details. And while we're here, I also want to point out a few upgrades to this application. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see that the air quality index has been moved to just below the weekly forecast, as opposed to being all the way at the bottom like before. You also now get the wind direction along with the wind speed, and you now get dew point, pressure, and visibility measurements. Scrolling a bit further down gives you the sunrise and sunset times, as well as the moon phase and moonset and moonrise times. The rest of the news widget just cycles through all the horrific things happening in the world. And if you're going to be using this one, I recommend changing the settings in the Samsung News app to try to make it a little bit less depressing and less divisive. So basically just turn off all the news stories and delete the widget. And maybe go see a counselor too. If you go to your settings, then scroll down a bit and go to security and privacy, then scroll down a bit more, you'll see a new option called Auto Blocker. If you enable this, you'll get enhanced security for your device, and your phone will automatically block any apps that are trying to be installed from unknown sources. It'll also check all of your applications for malicious activity, and block any malicious commands coming from a USB cable, which is particularly useful if you ever use public USB chargers like at a coffee shop or at a hotel. If you open up the Air Command menu with your S Pen, then open up the Smart Select option, then hover your S Pen over the screen, you'll now get a magnification bubble, making it a lot easier to make a perfect selection. And as you drag your selection out, you'll get another magnification bubble. And if you tap the pin option, you'll now be able to resize your selection as well. And if you tap your selection after it's pinned, you can still extract text out of it, which is something you couldn't do before One UI 6. If I wanted to extract text before One UI 6, I'd have to use the Smart Select option, then make my selection, and extract text from here. It was not possible to extract text after pinning the selection. Bixby Text to Call, which is a feature that lets Bixby screen calls for you before you pick them up, also gets an upgrade. Instead of only being able to activate Bixby Text to Call before a call is answered, you could now answer a call, then switch back to a Bixby Text call in the middle of the call. Samsung's tablets also get a big improvement with One UI 6. Not only do they include all of the improvements I've already shown you in this video, but they also get one more improvement with Samsung DeX. So before One UI 6, if I enabled DeX, It would take me to an entirely different interface with different desktop icons, and it'd be set up much more like a laptop with my open apps at the bottom, as well as a search bar and app drawer in the corner. And a bunch of shortcuts and notifications would also be moved down to the corner. Now, if I switch over to my Tab S9 Ultra, which does have the One UI 6 update, and I enable Decks here, I keep access to all of my home screens, and widgets work here as well. Before One UI 6, Decks did not support widgets. And when I open up an application while in Decks mode, it defaults to opening it up in pop-up view. The toolbar at the bottom also looks a bit different when you're in Decks mode, and if you tap this grid right here, it brings up all of your applications just like it did in the old Decks mode. And you'll also notice that you can get in and out of Decks way faster now. So there, I'm out of it, tap again, and I'm right back into Decks. There's no loading screens, it just quickly jumps right back in. The new Decks also supports portrait mode, which previously wasn't possible. Now let's talk about those deals. There are only a few days left to get 25% off any Samsung flagship phone, plus massive trade-in discounts, free storage upgrades, and big discounts on things like Galaxy Watches, tablets, laptops, and more. You can check out this video for details, or read the details in the pinned comment below. And don't forget to check out this video here to see a deep dive into the most powerful feature on any flagship Samsung device. And consider subscribing and turning on notifications if you want to see more deep dive videos just like this. That's it for this tech episode. God bless, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.